Hey everybody, let's talk about the paper one rubric before we get too far into the process of having you practice writing it multiple times. So we want to go over the different criterion. There's A, B, C, and D, right? So for criterion A, we're talking about understanding and interpretation. How well do you as a writer demonstrate that you understand the text and can draw conclusions from it, right? So that you don't just understand it on a superficial level, but you also sort of understand the nuance and the deeper meaning that the author was getting at, okay? We're going to look at criteria, or excuse me, number five. The paper one rubric is out of 20 points, and each one of the criterion are weighted the same. They're each weighted at the max score of five. Paper two is different. So, this is important to understand and to think about to strategize. So, for criterion A, you're thinking about the response demonstrates a thorough and perceptive understanding of the literal meaning of the text, meaning you understand the text on the surface level, but you have really interesting things to say about it on a deeper level as well. There is convincing and insightful interpretation of larger implications and subtleties of the text. So you're taking that nuance, not just the obvious stuff like interesting dialogue or we've talked a lot about like different kinds of diction. There's nothing wrong with that, but that is not a subtlety, right? That's the kind of the stuff that's right into your face. So if you are starting to practice at looking deeper into a text, we're going to talk about how to do this on Friday too, if you're like, what is she talking about? But if you're looking at beyond the superficial level and about beyond the superficial meaning of things, or if you're taking those superficial things, but coming to an interesting conclusion that is not super obvious about the text, then you're going to be in the 4 to 5 range, okay? Your references to the text are well chosen and effectively support your thesis. So, again, you got to have a strong thesis that answers the guiding question and that your text evidence, your text references support that, okay? Now, criterion B, that is where we talk about analysis and evaluation. So, to what extent does the candidate analyze and evaluate how textual features and or authorial choices shape meaning? This is all about you say what the authorial choices are and you discuss the impact on the reader, and all of that should support your thesis, which should answer your guiding question. Okay. So, if we're talking about like narrative conventions in like how do the narrative conventions like bring about voice, for example, you would need to make a guiding question that answers that question, make a thesis statement that is going to talk about how you're going to discuss all of the things in the guiding question, and then you're choosing those those text features or those things that are cool that the author does, the choices that they make that create the meaning of the text and a relationship between the author and the reader, right? And so how well you do that, if you mention them and you discuss them, you're probably going to end up in the 3 to 4 range, right? If you do it well, if there's a very good evaluation of the features and how the choices shape the meaning, you're talking about a 4 to 5, okay? Criterion C is focus and organization, which is, how focused and how coherent is your essay, which sounds not difficult, right? But you're also not always in a timed writing environment. You're in a position where you get to draft over and over. So there is a little bit of a trick to that. When you are in a timed writing environment and you have to produce, you've got one shot at this, right? And the answer is outlining and planning your writing before you write the entire essay, okay? In a DP situation, your pre-writing or your outlining will not be graded. Just the actual essay will. So for a 5, the presentation of ideas is effectively organized and coherence. The analysis is well focused, meaning that you don't go on a tangent, right? And then for criterion D, language, how clear, varied, and accurate is the language? How appropriate is the choice of register and style? So for a 5, in this category. The language is very clear, effective, carefully chosen, and precise with a high degree of accuracy in grammar, vocabulary, and sentence construction. So your grammar is on point and your sentence construction is on point. And remember, you are handwriting this, and that is sometimes the way we handwrite. Sometimes the way we write like we talk, but we talk less formally than we should be writing. This is an academic writing, and it should reflect that, right? The good news is that you'll be writing in pen. So if you have to cross out something and then rewrite it to be grammatically better or just structured better, you can do that. And so it's nice to be efficient in your writing so that you have some time at the end to like go back and read what you wrote and make any changes that are necessary, okay? With proper planning, you can do a good job on criterion C. With the right amount of time to go back and check for mistakes, you can do well on criterion D. And that means that like if you've got a solid foundation in those two, you're really just real needing to push yourself for criterion A and B. So that's my strategy to paper one. Let's look at a good example now, okay? Okay, now we looked at this on Monday, but let's look again at good paragraph structure. You're going to structure your essay in one of two ways. Your thesis statement is either going to address um, form or style with a couple of different examples of how the person is doing it. For example, narrative voice is created through the use of humorous diction, sentence structure, and I can't think of a third one. You should probably come up with two to four for an essay. So we'll just go with my two for now. So my body paragraph is going to be, in that case, all about um, the um, the diction, the academic, or excuse me, the humorous diction. Okay. So my topic sentence, I'm going to make that claim about the humorous diction. Then I'm going to give you an example, see where it says direct quote from text as evidence. Then I'm going to talk about that choice. And then I'm going to talk about the impact of the result or the impact as a result of the author making the choice to use this humorous diction, right? Then I'm going to remind my reader with a link to the guiding question of what the heck I'm talking about, and then link it also to the passage's overall purpose. And then I'm going to go into a secondary example of that humorous diction and pretty much do the same thing with some linking and transitioning sentences at the end so that I can get to my next body paragraph. However, if I'm talking about an overall concept in a body paragraph, I may use two different things, two different literary features. So this would be diction and something else in this paragraph, but I'm using those things as the choices to talk about the effect. So you're either talking about one authorial choice that's doing a thing that you say it's doing and using two, maybe three, but for right now, two pieces of text evidence to highlight that, or I'm saying this overall thing is happening, and I'm going to show you by showing you how the author uses these two different uh, literary features and talking about the effect of those. Okay. Again, this is not that much different than what you've done before. You just have to discuss the authorial choice and its effect to do well on paper one, but also to have a some more sophisticated analysis, which is what you're aiming for. Okay. Okay, so here's what I want you to do today. In Schoology, I've put an assignment in, and the first thing I've given you is a sample passage analysis that someone actually wrote for chapter 9 and 10, which is also what you guys wrote. This is not a student from this school. This is a student from another place's sample writing. And I've highlighted some things for you. I've given you an annotation key, okay? The rich idea is in pink. That's the thing that you say is happening as a result of the authorial choice. So, like the effect, okay? Your text references are going to be in blue. Your authorial choices, the thing you're calling out, like lit devices or features, is in yellow. And then the author-reader relationship is in orange. Now, remember, when you say that there is an effect as a result of an authorial choice, that is creating a relationship between the author and the reader. Like the author's doing this thing, the effect is on the reader. That's a relationship. You get me? So, I have highlighted in this sample where these things are. And then I have given you a sample from chapter 15, which is also my favorite chapter. And what I want you to do is write a short sample paragraph of your own and then go back in and annotate your rich idea, your text evidence, your authorial choice, and your author reader relationship in your own paragraph. This will make sense once you open the assignment, okay? Now hear me out. You're not writing an entire essay. You're not really even writing an introduction. You're literally just tackling a body paragraph and then annotating it so that we can notice the patterns of what you are doing as a writer based on your color coding annotation. Okay? Okay. Good luck.